This is the regular monthly meeting for the month of May on May 18th, 2021. And we will start now. Cam, if you'd be so kind as to read the roll. And Cam, you're muted.
Mr. McEnroth,
Here.
Mr. Atkinson,
Here.
Mr. LaSalle,
Here.
Mr. Morgan,
Here.
Mr. Simmons,
Here.
Mr. Jessic,
Here.
and Tim West will be joining us late. He's traveling. And I think that's it.
And the next item should be the minutes for the last meeting. If anybody have any changes, corrections, or other items that they want to take and change about the minutes? Hearing none.
I move that we approve the minutes of March 16th, 2021.
A second? I'll do it. Second it. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say opposed. Abstentions? So we approved them. And Kim, if you would take over now and run us through the agenda so that we don't miss anything.
Sure. Looks like our first topic is going to be John Lewis talking about the transportation budget and the proposed city commission goals. John, let me make you co-host real quick. John, you're muted.
He's muted.
All right. I don't really have any slides tonight, so I'm going to kind of go through the attachments that were in the agenda. I don't know if you can pull up the attachments, Kim. That way we can just kind of scan through them in case somebody has some questions. And thank you and good evening.
John, what do you want to go through first? The proposed goals or the budget?
Well, that PDF document, let's just start with the first page, or I think you've got a page 9 in the agenda packet.
Oh, okay.
So it's the transportation budget, biennial budget.
Okay.
And welcome everybody. Hope you're celebrating in a big way American Public Works Week this week. I'll mention that again because I want to advocate for public works for sure. There's a lot of work that we do that hopefully goes unnoticed by many of you, whether it be water, wastewater, transportation. Actually, lots of people consider parks and things like airports and other things like that all associated with public works. But in Oregon City, it's transportation, water, wastewater, stormwater. And so, we're trying to do a little bit to celebrate that. And my background is a good example of that. That poster is an annual poster that comes out of the American Public Works Association.
Can you see this?
Yes, thank you. Maybe I don't think we need, at least not yet. I just my intention was not to go through this document in great detail. I mainly wanted to acknowledge that the budget committee has approved the city's 2-year biennial budget for 2021 through 2023. If you remember, our budget year starts in July 1 and ends June 30th. So that's it. It's really a 2-year budget. And for public works, transportation is just one of those budgets. We have quite a few budgets in public works. So like some of the department heads I noticed that have one budget, they kind of have committed their budgets to memory. I haven't, but if you haven't looked at the document, I encourage you to do so. It's got some accomplishments and it's got some goals. It's got some details in terms of dollar amounts. I'm happy to try to answer questions if you have those, but I really kind of, the document that I really wanted to include was it's on page 15. It's again, the city commission's goals. Oh, one other thing that I want to talk about with regard to the budget, you can go ahead and scroll down to page 15, Kim, but it's my understanding that while we have an adopted budget through the budget committee, I think there was some items, I don't think they're big items. I think they're kind of some of the discretionary funding that the commission has, that there is some interest in going back before the commission adopts the budget. And so there's more discussion to come with regard to a full adoption of the budget. But I'm not sure that any of that touches transportation dollars or any of the other public works funds. I think they're more related to, again, some of the discretionary funding that plays out in these goals. So, I think the goals, the city commission's got 8 goals and several strategies within each of those goals and approaches. And this is a worksheet that's unique. We haven't done it quite this way before. So the city commission went through a goal setting, a variety of goal setting meetings, and has come, and we've kind of boiled that down to this worksheet, and it's got some proposed dollars in it. So I think it's good for all the committees to understand the city commission's goals, and to the degree that it matters to their committee, the budget as well. The main topic is that I think hits our committee right between the eyes is goal number 2. So if you could scroll down to goal number 2, and it's really the first strategy there, Kim. So if you could get that on the screen, it's that one right there. So I mentioned this at the last TAC meeting, and which was in March. And so since that time, I think we've kind of fully vetted this one. I haven't heard a lot of suggested edits to this one. So I think this one's pretty stable. Invest in current and future capital needs for safe, sustainable infrastructure and city services. And there's a small list of sub items under this. But for the Transportation Advisory Committee, this one here, prioritize projects in the Transportation Master Plan to maximize safety and connectivity. And, you know, Rachel's not on anymore, is she, Kim? No, I don't think she's on. So, you know, she's been really involved in transportation since she started on the commission. She sits on our C4, she goes to Metro meetings, so she's pretty active. And with that comes this interest in doing a little more to be responding to the community with some of our capital budget, and you know, trying to prioritize those things, try to deliver. Mostly, I think her focus has been on those alternative modes of transportation projects, and get a little more community engagement around that and try to prioritize those. And so I wanted, when the goal came up, then staff was asked to put together an approach. And this is kind of what I came up with, and has seemed to meet the needs of the commission. I don't remember if they tweaked on this that much, but really, my hope was to be able to lean on the Transportation Advisory Committee to help us vet this and share that information with the community. We'll do that on, you know, city side as well. We'll get the message out, but try to review our transportation system plan, and we've got some concept plans out there as well, and try to put some prioritization around multimodal and safety and connectivity projects. So, you know, we plan to bring on a consultant to help us with that. That'll probably be either probably DKS or Kittleson or one of our transportation planning firms. And, you know, I think the engagement process is going to be what it is. I think, you know, it's not as if we have, you know, a backlog of funding in the transportation budget that is discretionary funds to be able to kind of move around, but we have some, and we had targeted several projects in certain areas. Whether they're the right ones or not, you know, that always is debatable, but that's kind of, I think, the conversation we need to have. We need to reopen that transportation system plan that was done in 2012, and it's been updated with a little different capital list, but you know, look at, maybe we've done a little bit of this in the past where we've looked at what we've accomplished and kind of struck those projects that we completed, and then you know, really kind of prioritize those projects that are not complete. And when it comes to the alternate modes of transportation, we kind of generalize that, and we haven't gotten specific with, you know, where is an area where we need to build a missing piece of sidewalk, or where is it that we need a, you know, better emphasis on you know, bike travel infrastructure. And so I wanted you to know this was here. We haven't put a work plan around it just yet, but it also hasn't been fully adopted yet. But July 1's right around the corner. We kind of indicated we would focus on this you know, in September of 2021 for about a year. So whether it will really take that long or not, I don't know, but that was kind of our commitment. And so I'd love to get an early start on it, but summer's pretty busy. We'll see how that goes. But you know, again, if you've got thoughts and input on that, and I know some of you will, I see your hands up already. So we can definitely kind of start taking that and considering that and figuring out how to deliver on that. So that was why I've included that. So any questions about any of those things, I'll try to field.
I, as chairman, I'll exercise my prerogative to ask the first question, which is, are you anticipating this would actually get underway in, say, our first winter of, and then carry on from there?
Well, like I said, the estimated timeline we put was September through August of next year. Is that what you mean, the study time?
Yeah, I'm thinking, yeah, basically trying to get to when we could get a feel for when we might be in the time, about when we might get involved in this process. I know it takes a while to put our RFP out, and it takes a while to get responses, and it takes a while to get it approved by the commission and the contract signed and get started. But I was thinking that if I was being generous, it might get off the ground and get going, say, our part of it, say in November of this year.
Well, let me say this. Again, we haven't put together kind of a project schedule, so I think it warrants that, right? We need to figure out how long it's going to take us to bring a consultant on. You know, what's the engagement process really look like, and you know, how do we, how many meetings, for instance, do we bring this forward? And you know, I don't want to overcomplicate it either, just because it's a commission goal and it's important. I don't necessarily want to overcomplicate it. So, but at the same time, Henry, I haven't put that kind of thought into it. I really want to sit down with Dana and Vance and kind of figure out just a staffing plan, first of all, and kind of, you know, probably bring Kristen Brown into it because she's pretty helpful with the public outreach piece as well. So yeah, that's the best answer I can give you, Henry. You
Yeah.
might be right, though. It might be a wintertime project.
That's better than no answer. So I only see two hands because I can only see Kim and Ray and Bob. So Ray's at the top of my list. So I call him first.
I have a question about the consulting part. Are you like, wanting to like get involved with what is in that package that's sent out, like RFP process? So are you looking at having the TAC help to decide what the consultant does? Or are you looking at TAC being involved after the consultant is brought on board? Because I'm hoping to be involved before the RFP is sent out, so we can help to decide what the scope of work is going to be and what analysis tools and approach is going to be used. And so that's the part I'm curious about.
So the city has a short list of consultants that do transportation planning, and we recently updated that list. And so my hope is we select off of that list. Now there's a couple of firms that are more familiar with things that are more like TSP related stuff as opposed to designing a transportation project. So we'll probably look to those firms with those kind of resumes and then put together the scope of work, which I really think is what you're asking for, not so much the RFP selection process. It's more like, hey, what's in that scope? And
Correct. Yeah.
so we can definitely bring that to the to TAC as to here's our draft scope. What do you think? Does that make
Perfect.
sense?
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
was asking for. Thank you.
Okay.
Hey, Bob, you're in the barrel.
I would like to go back to the budget when you're through with discussing the goals, John.
I'm through. Is the rest of the TAC membership through with this goal and ready to go back?
I have seen no other hands up and I haven't heard anybody try to butt in. So
Are we discussing any of the other goals or just this goal? Just to clarify.
Well, this one's the one that, I mean, there's lots of goals on here. I'm not intending to go through all of them. Most of them aren't directly related, and they're, this one's the one where it's specifically related to what TAC does. There may be some other ones with regard to, well, I mean, these are city goals, and so they really involve all community members, but they're probably not necessarily ones that I had in mind for TAC. But is there something on there, Ray, that you had in mind that you thought TAC should take on?
Yeah, I was wanting to talk about the DEI goal and the DEI framework, if that's something that the committee wants to discuss. I may be the only one who wants to discuss that. Just trying to see if anyone else wants to discuss that goal.
And you take a shot at it and let us know what you're thinking.
I think it's the goal 8. I forget which goal it is.
The DEI is goal 1.
Oh, okay.
So these goals, by the way, are in priority order for the commission. So this was the top priority for the city commission.
So at least for me, that when it says safety overlaps with the last goal we're talking about, because look at safety and connectivity. And so I just want to point out that that's one reason why I think that this is important for our committee to discuss, is using DEI framework with a safety lens to make sure that, person of color communities are prioritized when looking at safety and connectivity. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm wanting to highlight goal 1.
And, I think there will be an element of the safety in the prioritization too, if we're talking about transportation safety. And so I guess one other sub item that was under that goal 2 was outreach to the work groups established by the planning department for the Oregon City 2040 comprehensive plan update process with emphasis on DEI. they've done a pretty amazing job, I think. I don't know if you've been following that, Ray, of putting together a group that, might best represent that. So that
I'm-
was kind
yeah,
of
I'm on
my
the
thought was
path.
my thought was to start with that group. And if there's people on there that aren't willing to serve, then we'll have to figure that out. But yeah, I was liking the work that's already been done in terms of an interest group. That might be one.
Yeah, I am on the project advisory team for the 2040, so I'm involved there as well.
Yep, Savannah. Is this question about,
No, I was
The
just gonna,
goal?
no, I was just gonna comment that working with this workforce committee will also kind of tie into community engagement because we're actively working with those working within the community. So those two tie in together, which can also contribute to DEI and safety. That's all.
thank you. So not hearing any more questions on this subject.
Bob has his hand raised.
I know Bob has his hand raised, but he was wanting to talk about the budget.
I guess I have one last thing about goals. Since these, I think they're adopted or they're finalized, does that mean that we can finalize our discussion about our committee goals for the year? Because I believe that's a separate process. So just because I remember that back in, I think, January, when I was advocating for adding a DEI goal for the committee, that was not approved. And so I'm wanting to see if we're going to restart or continue the committee goal discussion at some point.
Our goals are always a yearly thing, so and the years, our meeting schedules are about half over right now. So it certainly needs to stay in place until we redo it anyway.
I think Henry and the rest of the tech, we had goals and we haven't updated them. I think the anniversary date of when we would typically update those kind of came and went because the commission hadn't adopted its goals yet. And I think we agreed, Henry, that it would be good to do that. So I do believe Ray is correct in that we were going to circle back to that. And I think these goals are far enough along that we could probably do that. How you want to do that, Henry? Typically that's been done with you and your I think co-chair or vice chair, with input from others, but there's normally, probably myself and Vance and Kim, and sit down with you and, someone of your choosing to kind of draft those goals and then bring them back for discussion with the committee.
So the good question then is, what would the rest of the committee like to do in regards to how this would be worked out? I'm open to doing either a subcommittee or putting it on as a full meeting, either way. And the real question is probably more of a education of our membership as to what this really involves, so that we have a better feeling for how to come up with a goal.
Well, I'll jump right in there, Henry, having gone through this before as the prior chair. The way that John just described, I think worked very, very well. Because it allows the committee then to hone in rather than have a great big huge picture in front of them.
It worked well. It worked well when I was involved in it earlier in that method, but with new membership, I was wondering if anybody had a preference. Okay. Then the next question is, who wants to be on the committee besides Ray and me? Well, looks like going into it, it'd be Ray and
Hi.
me.
I'd be interested in working with you, Henry.
Pardon?
I'm sorry. I'd be interested in helping you work on that committee.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't have my mic muted here and I was talking away.
So which one are you?
Tim Morgan.
Morgan. Okay. Tim Morgan and Ray and I will be the subgroup.
Okay, and there'll be opportunities to take shots at that for other members. I just think trying to get, you know, trying to, one, make sure we've got goals that are attainable, because that's always a challenge too. There's usually lots of desires to see things done, and then there's the other question, which is we've got work plans that involve, staff have work plans that are beyond what's, you know, what the TAC may offer. So there's that piece for me that's pretty important. But it's worked out before, like you said, Henry, and Bob as well. So we'll schedule that. Kim, can you make a note to, let's doodle poll people and figure out what works for Tim and Ray and Vance and I and Henry. Sounds good. I know Bob had a question about budget, so let's see if we can get to that one.
Yes, John, I have, my first question is on page 11 in reference to the contingency amount in the, wait till you get there.
Right there, Kim. I think
Okay, and
it's,
the contingency amount, the biennium, the previous biennium was $34,077. And then in the proposed biennium, it jumps up to almost $500,000. What is the difference there?
some of that may have to do with kind of the bigger projects that we have, that we've had. I don't, you know, I would say the 34,000 was a pretty big ask to get that low. Typically, we wouldn't have that kind of a contingency. If you look at the capital outline, the capital line there, it was pretty heavy. And we're still planning to spend a fair amount on capital in this biennium as well. You know, but we are maintaining what I would say is a reasonable contingency. It's not, I don't think it's extreme in that we've got other funds that have much bigger contingencies, and it's pretty easy to find an emergency come up that could spend $500,000 when you're talking about transportation, based on what we're seeing with some of these projects that are around landslides. In particular, Trillium Park Drive is a good example of that. So I guess it is, it's a contingency. It's a contingency that carries over, so we don't lose it. And it fluctuates from biennium to biennium, but I don't think that looks out of line.
Yeah, I didn't think it was out of line. I think it's very appropriate. I just saw the huge difference between the numbers from one biennium to another. My next question is on page 12. Repair and maintenance services in the bienniums goes from 600,000 to 1 million from one to the other. Are there some repairs and maintenance that are foreseen that are exceptional?
I've got to remember. Let me look at the details of that one and get back to you, Bob, because I don't know that there's anything that exceptional. But let me look, and I'll
And
pull up
then
that.
my final question, I'm assuming you'll get back to me after the meeting.
Well,
I don't expect an answer immediately.
I might be able to answer it quicker than that, but it's
okay,
going to take,
I'll wait.
it's going to take me a little while. Actually, I'm not logged into the network. So yeah, just let's keep going, Bob, and I'll see what
Okay, I
I can.
have one more question and then I'm done. And that's on page 13. Total resources is reduced from 16,709,000 to 1/2, 8,085,000 from biennium to biennium.
Yeah, so let's see, just looking at this is the transportation system development budget. And just kind of looking at the beginning fund balance and knowing what I know generally about development, our development has dropped off significantly. So charges for services have dropped off significantly. And then our beginning fund balance, because of the spending we did with Myers Road in particular, we had, Myers Road was pretty heavily funded with transportation SDCs. Malala, not so much. There is a piece of Malala that's funded with transportation SDCs, but I think those are the biggies. And then, we don't see gas taxes and transportation SDCs. So I really think it's just the drop off in, larger developments.
Okay,
We
that makes
saw
sense.
We saw that pretty heavily during most of last year with COVID. We don't exactly know when it's going to pick up, but I also like to estimate low on the resource side. And I'm hoping that we do better than that development wise, but if we don't, we don't. And it really does kind of affect our ability to build those projects that add capacity. Yeah, so hopefully we get some revenue, but I think that explains that number.
Okay, well, I'll refer to some history here why I asked those questions. When I ran for mayor several years ago, I put about, 12 hours into going into details of the budget, and then I had questions for each department head. And I'll be a son of a gun if they didn't have adequate answers for every question I had. And you've done the same thing here. So, but that's kind of my history of getting into these details on the budget. Thank you, John.
I'll try and get to that other one at some point during the meeting, Bob, and try and get you an answer by the end of the meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you.
John, before we leave you and go to Vance, would you do a brief comment and summary on the citizen comment we got regarding ODOT detouring traffic through Kenema?
I didn't see it. What did that, where did that come from?
Paul Edgar.
So was that in an email that Kim forwarded that I just haven't read
Kim
yet?
forwarded it this afternoon, but basically they shut down 99E about a week or 10 days ago with at South Second, and had nobody at that barricade to explain, redirect traffic or whatever. And people were going around it, and they had 99E completely blocked somewhere around the south end of Kenema. And they were detouring traffic up into the Kenema streets and back around. And from the reading of his comments, there was some outrage about all that, plus some concern that I saw underwriting it about if any of that was approved by the city or if we even knew about it.
Well, I guess I didn't look at that, Henry. I apologize for that, but I can look into that. And My sense is, I'm trying to think back of some of the things I was aware of. I know PGE, for instance, had to do a closure of 99E to basically put new transmission lines across 99E that were damaged in the ice storm. I don't know if that's the one or if this was an accident. Sometimes accidents happen on
Right.
99, and when that happens, they detour up and over South End Road and down. I'll have to check on the dates and figure out what's going on there. But, you know, closing 99E, if it's a planned event, is something that we may issue a permit on if it's like someone like a utility provider like PGE, or if it's, you know, a property owner who needs a permit to build something or move something or something like that into Oregon City, we permit those. But oftentimes ODOT closes their facility for, I know it happens for rockfall. You know, they've been pretty heavy with regard to tree maintenance. I don't know if that's what it was associated with. So I don't know. I'll have to look. Unless, I don't know, Vance, did you happen to look into it at all or see this? I haven't.
So the first I'd heard about this was today when I read that email. Here in operations, we didn't get word about that closure, whatever it was, on Highway 99. And if I had to make an assumption, I would say that ODOT, when they closed it, did not perform the closure at the usual spots like they normally do, which would be South End Road. And they were allowing, or actually maybe making the cars go through Kenema. So again, it's nothing we knew about here in operations. Yeah.
I saw the barrier and it was a 4-foot by 8-foot 3-board barricade out on center line with no indication of anything as to what was going on. And I'm just trying to remember what time it was. It was about 10 days ago or 2 weeks ago.
Henry,
And
we can get
anyway,
back to you on it.
I would appreciate it if you would get something to us, if only so people will know that we pay attention to their comments, which I know we do.
Are you okay with email on that to the group, Henry?
I would prefer that you have something in the agenda just so it's out there and Paul would, and others who might be interested would be able to access it.
Okay, we'll do that. We'll do both, just so you guys get an update, and then we'll make sure that that email gets included in the agenda packet.
Okay.
We won't make an agenda item out of it unless it's really kind of, you know, there's something to it.
Yeah. It just needs to be available so that people, if they have an interest, can actually find out what the city knew about it.
And Henry, you mentioned that was approximately 10 days, 2 weeks ago.
Something like that.
Okay.
Anyway, moving on. What's next, Kim? Isn't it? Wouldn't it be Vance next? And the report on construction?
Hang on. I was trying to do 20 things at once.
Oh.
The next item is capital roadway projects. I think, was that Vance or was that John? John, were you going to talk about the slurry seal, chip seal?
I sure can. I just, this isn't new news. It's really just kind of, we've got in here the slurry seal and the chip seal projects. We did make a change. I don't know if I'm trying to think if it's the trail news that we typically publish these projects in. I don't know if it's come out yet, but there was a change. We were showing Lynn and Washington Street for chip seal, and after we had a more discussion about that, and looking at timelines and impacts to businesses, we backpedaled a little bit, and we've identified South End and Warner Parrott. So crews have been out on Warner Parrott and doing kind of some patchwork, and then we'll top that with a a chip seal and then a fog seal. So I think most of you are probably familiar with that process. And then they're going to do the same thing with South End Road. And then our slurry seal project maps are attached. So we're not doing a huge project this year with slurry seal, but we are doing some streets that are all included in your packet and mapped. And both of those contracts were awarded last week. And I don't know that maybe Vance knows, but I'm not sure I know a schedule for those yet. Normally we award them, we give the contractor notice of award, and they and hold a pre-con, and we get a schedule from it at that point. But
Hey, John, they're
yeah.
on the city commission agenda tonight or tomorrow night for approval. So then we'll,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah. Well, I reviewed them and approved them a week ago, so I don't know what's taken the commission so long. But the other one that's not in there is the annual rehabilitation projects. So that project also awards, I want to say tomorrow. Get all these projects mixed up, but a big effort is going to be, we're going to finish High Street from 3rd to 7th. And we're going to throw in the piece that we're working on right now on 5th Street, that one block between High and Center Street. We're going to make that we're going to add that as a change order. So they'll finish with the storm and the water work here real quick. And then when the street work comes around, we'll add that to there. We're also going to be doing work on 8th Street from Jackson to 10th. I think I don't know if that's Jackson to Monroe to Madison. Then I think we skip a couple blocks and then we go Madison to John Adams. Yeah, and then we skip a couple blocks and go from 10th to 8th. No, I'm wrong about that. 8th Street from Jackson to John Adams Street. And I think there's a fair amount of sidewalk work associated with that new sidewalk. So if you live in the McLaughlin neighborhood, you'll notice that. John Adams from 8th to 10th, Division Street. Really, there's not a good stop and start descriptor on those, but in the area of 15th Street, 14th Street from Buchanan Street to Division, Beaver Lane, Fox Lane, Hilltop Avenue, all those areas kind of over by the Metro, the new Metro Park. We'll be doing a fair amount of work in that area. And then Joyce Court off of Shenandoah. Well, there's a cul-de-sac over there we're going to take on. So pretty good list of projects, and they are all on budget and on time. So given that we haven't started them yet, I hope they stay that way. But just wanted to give you that little update.
John, can I switch your gear a little bit and ask you if you've heard anything from the county about their shuttle bus program that was supposed to get going pretty soon?
Yeah, they've struggled with that. I've checked in with Dana a couple times, and I'm trying to remember what her update was last time we talked about this. I think her update was every time she asked them about it, it's a couple months out. And so they've been pushing that. I don't know, Ray's been tracking that, I think, a little bit too. I don't know if you know, Ray, but I think they bought the buses. I think they had ordered like bus stop and signage materials. They picked routes. So it's not too far off, but I don't have a date for you, Henry. Okay. I can get back to you on that, but I don't have a good update.
County is currently negotiating the contract with the vendor, and so that's hopefully will be done in May. And takes about a month after the contract is signed to get the drivers hired, trained, and then start the routes. So according to county staff, and I emailed them, they said probably mid-June, most likely mid-late June is what I've heard. It's this summer.
I'm sort of looking forward to seeing how that works out.
Me too. I'm looking forward to writing it.
Yeah, well, your legs get tired sometimes.
Yeah, those hills, biking up those hills is, yeah.
So Anything more for John?
I have a couple of questions on the pavement maintenance. I noticed on the south end parts of south end are county and parts are city. Is this all within the city?
Yeah, yes, it is, Bob.
Okay. And then my next question is, on the page that shows Holcomb Boulevard and the slurry seal on A Street and B Street, those are both county streets. Do we get reimbursement or trade-in services or something from them?
Jurisdictionally, I'm not sure they are, but I'll have to check on that, Bob.
Well, the signs that designate which streets they are in the blue color, which indicates private streets or others, not city streets. So I assume that those streets in those the low-income housing community up there is county stuff. So anyway, that was my question on that.
Yeah, good point. I don't know. It's quite possible that Jason just looked at the condition and didn't look at ownership piece, but I don't recall questioning him on that one. So,
Okay, and then in the upper corner of that map also in Stables Way and Pasture Way, those streets are just a few years old. Why would they need maintenance already?
yeah, I did notice that myself. So I went up and looked at those. Whether it's, I don't know if that's an asphalt condition or if it's just, I'm not sure why, but I was wondering the same thing. They've done a lot of crack sealing up there already, and it may just be a surface is wearing more than it should. And
Maybe there's a possibility to go back to the developer. You know, that's a pretty short time for street to need maintenance.
yeah, it is shorter than I would like to see, but well outside the warranty period.
Yeah,
What street's that again?
the new streets.
Off
up by
Ames
the
Street.
School, Holcomb School,
Okay, so
Stables and
Stable
Pasture Way.
Place.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to talk to Jason about those, but you're right. They're fairly new.
Yeah, okay, that's all I had.
Well, thank you, John. A good job as usual.
Now we're
Now-
moving on to the Public Works report, and it looks like Vance, you're up first, talking about the city lighting concerns in the couple areas that we have. Well, in the couple areas in the city.
Sounds good, Kim. Want to share screen, please?
I made you co-host so you can share your screen.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Can you see this map shot that I have on the screen of Redland and Abernathy?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, very good. Mr. Morgan, you brought this to our attention a meeting or two ago, and in working with Jason Thornburg, what you're seeing, these are existing PGE power poles that are there. There are no lights on them, like we discussed in the meeting. You see some lights up here on Holcomb. So Jason and I did some calling around. It's within the city limits. Redland is a county jurisdiction road. The county said if lights are in the city limits, it doesn't matter to them. They don't really care. We can put lights there. So Jason has been tasked with talking with PGE and our PGE liaison and confirming or denying if these three poles are suitable to have a mast arm and a LED Cobra head fixture put on there. you know, I know a bit about streetlights, but not enough to look at a power pole and say definitively yes or no. So that is truly up to PGE to make that determination. If it is determined that that there is room on the pole to put a mast arm and a cobra head, they would probably go in as option A fixtures, which typically means PGE picks it up on their nickel and we pay a monthly power and fixture fee on that.
Vance,
Yeah.
are you talking about the old style Cobra head, or are you talking about the LEDs that they are using now?
Oh, no, they'd be all, we actually don't put up any kind of high pressure sodium or mercury vapor lights anymore, Henry. They'd be all LED.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. Unknown if they'd come from a company called Leotech or Cree, but there's some very good Cobra head fixtures. So yeah, potentially working with PGE, we could see some lighting in that area. Any more questions on Redland?
While you're doing this is good. How about, do we look at the lighting going into the golf course over there? Because that's another very high traffic area of turning, and they're just going down Abernathy to the left there.
Oh, you know, I certainly can, Tim, but I have not at this point, but I'm more than happy to look it up and see what's up there.
Yeah, because this would be a huge improvement in there, because there's so much traffic going into the pizza place, the little quickie mart, and I forget what else is in there. Because the cars coming down from Mountain Road, they curl down in there. They're usually at pretty high speed, and then they get in this dark zone in there. The other area, I don't know if you know who, but tree trimming crew needs to really do some tree trimming around the curve here on Holcomb that hangs out. If you just take your little mouse, keep going down the street there, keep going, and right in this area here on the south, actually you're coming down the hill just a little bit higher up, right in there, just over to your left. They got some nasty branches that hang down there. So if you're pulling a fifth wheel or some kind of a tall vehicle there, they're usually clipping in there. And as you know, this whole area up here was out of lights for 5 days during the ice storm. And I think they've been doing some of the tree trimming farther up the road there. But
yeah, no problem. We'll be happy to take care of it, Tim.
But that would be a huge improvement, especially if they can just put the poles up there and get some light on there. I think that would be, because the other part too is when you go farther up the road, if you move your screen down a little bit, when you get to this whole area here coming off this little short spot off of 213, just keep going out, just keep pulling it down.
You know, I took a screenshot and this is my map.
Oh, okay.
Right here.
Well, basically that curve right there is, it is pretty dim in there. And that's kind of where we were talking earlier, where cars are coming and doing U-turns right there. They're just a little bit farther up, but I didn't think of it was because of the Home Depot missing the turn. So later in the meeting, I'm going to make a suggestion about where maybe we should put a traffic sign that shows how to go north or south on here though. But hey, I'm impressed that you guys got this already so far. I mean, how many years has this been like this?
No
You
doubt.
don't want to know.
Well, again, in regards to these poles, you know, I can't promise you that PG is going to install lights. They're their poles and it is up to their discretion. But in a previous life in another city, you know, if PG can place a light there, they're typically very willing, which is a good sign. But some poles, depending on how much they have hanging off of them, there's just not room for the mast arm and the light.
Right.
But I'll, yeah, we should have information before the next stack meeting and I should be able to report back out to you.
Okay.
All right, moving on to the transit center. Here's Oregon City Transit Center, KFC. You can see we already have some LED lights here intermixed with some high pressure sodium, HPS. We have one LED that's out that we know about that we will get replaced. This pole here has been taken out by vandalism a couple of times. Unfortunately, the last time it was taken out, it ruined the bolts that go into the concrete. that you actually attach the pole to. So it is on our list to work on, but to make this repair, we've got a saw cut around this, excavate it, and pour new concrete for a pole foundation. The poles that have been in there have been the tall aluminum poles, which are actually pretty fragile. We're not going to put one of those in again because they like to tear them down. So you're going to see one of the black fluted cast iron poles in its place. Where you see lights indicated as high pressure sodium, we are going to make a lighting purchase after the new biennium, July 1, and we'll replace these lights with a Leotech LED. And that's in the plans for later on this summer.
So has anybody been out there at night to see how the light spread is in that area, to see if there's any really dark areas?
Yes, I have. It's been quite a while, Henry. The lighting isn't horrible, but with this one missing, and the high pressure sodiums are
Nasty.
fairly adequate, and they're old, and they do not produce the light that LED does. Speaking of tree trimming, similar to what Tim mentioned earlier, this LED is pretty much engulfed in the trees right now. So Jason, actually, he wants me to go down there and look at it with him. We may have to do some pretty extensive pruning to get this to where it shines, because currently it just shines up a little bit of the sidewalk and where people like to congregate there. But again, with addressing this one that's out, that to Jason's credit, apparently he just learned about. He did not know that one was out. Get this missing one back in, get these converted to LEDs. It should help out quite a bit.
On the one down there with the trees, is that going to be a continuing problem for until the tree dies?
You know, it would be, Henry, and it could be. However, TriMet, I've met with TriMet out here before, and they are still pondering how to get some more parking for their buses that need to pull into the transit area or somewhere around here and sit for a while in between routes. So they approached the city and inquired, hey, what if we removed some of this landscaping and made basically a parking pocket for a bus in here? I spoke with John about it, and again, this is going back well over a year, and we pretty much put it in TriMet's court. You're okay to proceed with a plan, and when you get a plan, show us and let's talk about it and see what they've come up with and go from there. And I haven't seen anything from TriMet. I don't know that Dana Webb, our city engineer, has either. But if that does come true, Henry, and PG TriMet wants to take this vegetation out, make it parking, that will alleviate the tree issue that we're having there currently.
You suppose that would trigger the city's tree replacement requirement?
I'm sure it would. Yeah. And TriMet would be on the hook to replace the trees.
Someplace.
Correct.
Oh, that'll.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Actually, it's for Savannah, if she's still with us.
Yes, hello.
Your concerns down there at the transit center, would this new lighting help relieve your anxiety there?
Basically where he pointed out the missing and where it's currently out is the dark zone that I was mentioning. I'm just curious how we will prevent it being taken down, and if TriMet Police is aware of it and what other efforts, because it is across from an area that is, the police station is around there. So it doesn't really make sense that it's a continued area that can be vandalized without it being prevented. And I agree, the HPS lights are not adequate and they're very oxidized and
Yeah, Savannah, it's always amazed me sometimes. I've been in this business quite a while now, what people decide or choose they're gonna vandalize. And in this case, you're absolutely right. This isn't like it's a dead end street or a quiet area. There's usually people all around here at all hours. I think this building is county owned and has something to do with the jail system. TriMet does have their officers. So yeah, I have no idea how the vandals got that light down, other than the aluminum lights, as I mentioned, are not very robust. But that being said, you really got to work at it to pull one of these down. So
yeah.
Vance, I think you're dealing with metal thieves and a pretty good pickup truck.
that wouldn't
When I
surprise
was-
me. Jason and I talked about that earlier, Henry, and our conversation went to, I sure hope that, Davis Recycling in Clackamas would question somebody showing up in an old beat up pickup with what's obviously a aluminum streetlight pole wanting to recycle it.
They don't seem to question much at all.
Yeah.
When I was working for state parks, we had an incident where somebody broke into the restroom at Lewis and Clark State Park and pulled out all the copper out of the maintenance room while the pump was running on the well.
Wow. Yeah, I'm not making light of your comment by any means, Savannah. Again, just the contrary. It amazes me sometimes what we see out there with what people vandalize. And
Yeah.
they get away
And
with
that building across the street is the parole office.
Yeah, that's it. Thanks, Henry. Savannah, thanks for your input on the area that you were talking about.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how it will look once those are up and how long they'll be able to stay up.
Yes, fingers crossed.
Hey, Vance,
Yeah.
so since this is kind of the use of TriMet, are they going to be reimbursing the city for all the light improvements there? Or is this something that the city is actually responsible because they're leasing the space from them?
The lights, Tim, are indicated to be owned by the city. So, if TriMet wanted to be really nice, maybe, but I doubt it.
Okay.
That's city-owned streets in there.
Correct.
So it's city property that TriMet is using.
No, I hear a rate increase on the rent coming.
I like it. Ray, I see your hands up. Do you have a question?
Yes, I have a question. Has SEPTED principles been used at all in this process? I don't know if you're familiar with SEPTED.
I'm
Crime prevention
I understand what
through
you're saying, Ray.
crime prevention through environmental design. I don't know if that's been used in the process of trying to prevent further crime from happening.
You know what, at our level here in operations, Ray, the answer is no. That would be a question that maybe John could elaborate on if engineering has done that, but Jason and I have not utilized that.
Is anyone in the city familiar with SEPTED? I'm just curious about whether that's something that the city's exploring.
And Ray, I'm not following, is that an acronym or?
Yes, SEPTED is crime prevention through environmental design. It's mostly used in like urban planning and architecture and urban design to prevent crime from happening through principles. It's I can send you an email about it. That'd be helpful.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with it. Land use planners might be, but no.
All right, folks, any other questions?
Not on this specific area here, but just down the street, I'm wondering with all the improvements of the food court down off of 14th and Washington,
Mhm.
have we had any traffic issues with the increased acceleration of outdoor dining in that area?
You know, I would say I have observed it, yes. John, weren't there recently some meetings in regards to traffic congestion in that area? I think I saw you were in.
Yeah, yes, Tim, I would say that notably more traffic and definitely more demand for off-street parking. Well, on-street too, if we had it, but we don't have it. So the parking in the area is raised some questions. So the landowners in that area have been talking about, at least a couple of them have been talking about, changes, ideas. Not sure that they're proposing bringing money to the table, but it's definitely got a fair amount more cross traffic at what's Center Street, right there under the bridge. And then just a lot of jaywalking that happens from one side to the other. And even some suggestion or discussion about maybe extending a median that would prevent left turns out of some of the driveways. So yes, I think, I don't remember your question, but it was, my interpretation was, have we experienced problems down there? Yes. Police are focused on it as well, looking to find out if we've really seen much accident change. Definitely busier down there though, and a lot more pedestrian conflict opportunities.
So they do have the parking there between the building that they converted to the wine bar or beer bar or whatever it's called, to the railroad bridge, and that's pretty good for parking, because otherwise you don't know where you'd park down there. But I'm just wondering if it's going to be needing a crosswalk somewhere in there, people going, trying to park from either from the existing establishment was across the street there, to where now it's in there. I mean, I'm not complaining about it, but I'm just concerned that it's always had good traffic just because people coming off 99. But now you've got this attraction there with all the food vendors there. Is there something that we need to be looking at to head off at the pass, just to be prepared for it?
There's also been there's another group that's looking at parking downtown and just pedestrian safety measures throughout downtown. And this was an area that included in that area. So, how to, make pedestrian safety a priority. There's not much in, that Washington 15th Main Street corridor that you could do. I definitely would question any kind of mid-block or Center Street crosswalk just because of the confusion of the railroad tracks there. So I'm not sure that is a good solution. But trying to get folks associated with, say, the public parking lot, for instance, instead of, trying to park, over by Subaru or something, that's an option. But yeah, the demand is high. Good news is traffic is generally pretty slow in those areas, but yeah.
John, and I think from what I have seen, because I can get through there at various times of the day, I think you have two different things going on. One is the pedestrians trying to get into the food cart area, because no matter how you get where you are, you have to cross either Washington Street or 14th Street to get in there. So you have the pedestrian conflict. But two, 14th Street and Washington out to 205 is a nose to tail commuter route most of the day now. And so you've got too many cars trying to come down Washington and turn onto 14th and then proceed either down Main Street to the old bridge or out to McLaughlin.
Yeah, I think the other thing is, since corner 14 has been open, 12th Street's been closed.
Isn't
So
that- Yeah, there's that too.
we're seeing just, that was kind of the consensus when we met to talk about it was there's a lot of traffic that would typically use 12th Street that's now using 14th. And
That's true, yeah.
that hasn't helped. So-
But the traffic I'm talking about never used 12th. They came from the other direction. And in the evening, you got some semis and whatnot that are coming down 14th and making a left turn onto Washington Street to go out toward Home Depot and 213.
One thing
So-
that I've noticed is part of the obstruction of traffic as a result of the light timing on 99E and 14th. Maybe talking to ODOT so that traffic on 14th would move more frequently might help.
Right. One of the things I've often wondered about is if you guys could get a hold of a stop frame camera to mount on some of these places so we can see what happens during the time frame when nobody's working.
Actually, if you go to ODOT Trip Check, the cameras on Washington are on there, Henry, and you can click on them. And
Yeah.
there's one
But
in close
it
up
record-
proximity, you can see.
Is it recorded so you can review it in off time?
No, you'd have, it's real time. I don't think there's a way on the ODOT Trip Check that you could, save it and go back to it, Henry, unfortunately.
I'm thinking about something that the city could move around, but would operate as a recording device. So you could do, manual counts among other things, but basically so that you could see in a reasonable amount of time what's actually happening on these corners on times when nobody's working or no city staff can go out and see it. And I know these things exist because I've seen them for the last 15, 20 years.
If I could offer up something, I think that corner 14 is only going to get busier because the Oregon City Brewing is going to open up 7 food carts in, September or October. So I think probably the best thing to do would be put up signs saying additional parking available. I don't know what that street is over where the chapel is, but there's parking over there. And if we could help direct traffic, I think that would help in mitigating some traffic issues on the corner of 14th and Washington.
A moment now, I think we've discussed this one to death, but I see that Paul Edgar is here now. And I think it would be worthwhile to be able to hear his comments about the ODOT problem that they encountered down in Kenema. And I think we can give him a few minutes time to do that if he would be willing.
Yes. Thank you. Am I on?
Yes, you are.
Okay, great. Well, I sent an email in, and I hope you guys had a chance to see it or read it. But ODOT was doing some work between Kenema and the Falls View Tavern. And what happened was they blocked all the lanes. ODOT or PGE or whoever all they were, but the plan was for it to be 4 hours or have it done by noon. Well, everybody that was in Canby that comes on 99 East northbound, there was a blockade that was put up to try to get the people to go up to onto South End Road, but people just went ahead. And all of a sudden they all showed up and there was no place for them to go. So except winding up through Kenema all the way up around and about until they got up to South End Road. And then they proceeded to go down South End and connect. But what that showed was just absolute chaos. And these are the types of things that can happen if we end up having a toll on 205 when we get redirection or diversion of traffic. And so we had maybe 1,000 cars come through Kenema on historic wagon roads, 25 feet of asphalt, and people parking, and we have construction going on right now. And it was hell. And then all of a sudden I was talking to this ODOT employee, and he comes up through there and he's with his emergency truck, and we get talking about it. And he said, well, I know that they're just going around the thing, but then a car came speeding down from South End Road, probably going 35 miles an hour into this traffic, into a jam where there was trucks and everything. And somehow they came to a stop, young person. But we both took a big gulp because there was an accident just right in front of our eyes that just about happened. And we're trying to figure out what to do. Well, part of the problem is that Kenema just doesn't have the capacity to be able to handle anything. And the pedestrians, it's a designated ped and bike travel corridor. And there's no curbs and there's no sidewalks. So everybody's right in the middle of the street. And so when we have these things that are happening like that, we're at basically capacity, and not everybody is smart. Surely I'm not. But all I can turn around and tell you is that they give out driver's license sometimes, I think, in Cracker Jack boxes. What we need to have people understand is that that Kenema has so much restrictions to it, invisibility, sharp corners, everything's blind. And if we get the designation for our area says that we should have 20-mile-an-hour speed limits. We need more signs. Maybe we need speed bumps. And for me to say a speed bump, I'm totally anti-speed bump. But somehow, if we don't do something, we're going to lose some lives, just because there's just so many more people now using this McLaughlin to Kenema Trail and finding how nice it is to walk from wherever in Oregon City all the way out into the metro natural area. It becomes very, very popular. And one of the first people that you see would be Dr. Norris and his wife, Alice. They walk through here all the time, just as those are the type of people that we see out here. But within all of this stuff, my wife drives a Prius, and so when she gets all those squirrels going in a Prius that go out through the intersection of South End, of Fifth Avenue and South End, she has 2 seconds to clear South End Road. Cars coming up South End Road power up on average well over 35 miles an hour. So when there's a cross sign showing that there's going to be an intersection, probably 300 yards down from South End and Fifth Avenue. And it says 20 miles an hour. It's basically, everyone says, well, that's the suggested speed for safe driving, but nobody does it. And so when they come up the hill, they come around a corner. And when they come around the corner, a blind corner, they can't see anybody ahead of them. And you only have 100 feet of visual clearance. And so cars driving 35 miles an hour are going 51 feet per second. So we got 2 seconds to get people through that intersection. And if we get any more traffic and stuff that we're having, because the traffic has gone up probably 20% in Kenema recently. And it's alarming because of the impact that it has with all the walkers in the streets gone up 20%. So we have we're kind of reaching a problematic area of saying, how do we keep people alive? How do we make smart decisions? And right in front of my house, there's this ridge on Fifth Avenue where Ganong Street would be. It's an unimproved street right of way, and you can't see over it. So when you're coming into off of South End Road, you kind of drop down into a little bowl area, and then you come up over this ridge, and then you start dropping down. You go to Miller Street, but that ridge right there is blind. Again, 100 feet, cars come ripping through there. Somebody is below walking up the hill, or cars or whatever. But when they go through that section of the road, 9 out of 10 are right in the middle of a 25 feet, and they could go head to head and have a head-on collision right where my house is. I'm glad I'm trained in EMT status, but that's not what I want to do. We have, Kanema is special. It's a National Register Historic District. People have found out that it's beautiful, but these historic wagon roads are an opportunity, let's put it that way, for critical thinking and coming up with some good decisions. I would hope, thank you, John, for being here and part of this. And he knows this stuff well. It's not simple. If I had all the answers, I would be trying to voice them. But I think we're an accident waiting to happen that could be very fatal, and I would not want that to happen. And I think getting out onto the south, my recommendation is we need to post, have John work with the county, because the county owns South End Road, to bring the speed limit down. So when you get past South Second and you're going up the hill, they have a sign that ups the speed past 25 miles an hour, up to 35. Everybody says, wow, or 30. So going down the hill, it's posted at 30. But we have when people go up that hill from South Second, they're traveling fast.
Paul,
It's dangerous.
could you wrap this up so that we can move on, please?
Yep, I hope that if you could all get the email that I sent out, and you can read it, and I hope that I tried to put it all in the email. I would love to see some input, some help, and I thank you for the moment. Thank you.
And I thank you for bringing it to attention, because I know that much use on that road would be painful. And I see Savannah wants to contribute. But you need to unmute your mic.
Okay.
Oh, Kim has to let me unmute. I just was giving a clapping emoji for his statement. I really appreciate the attention, especially for the roads that might not be able to handle that amount of traffic, and the input about the toll. I really appreciate it as well.
Thank you. So now back to our regular agenda items. Kim, if you could bring us back on trail again, please.
I think it's still, let's see, I think,
It's, yeah, the Public Works report. John's going to give an Frontier Parkway update.
let's see, Frontier Parkway. Oh, Frontier Parkway, yes. So again, I don't have a slide there, but if you remember, we had, let's see, is Matt's on the phone. Yeah, so Matt came before us a few meetings ago, and we talked about Frontier Parkway and their concerns for cut through traffic, and we've kind of continued to look at that. We kind of put a pause on gathering more data because of COVID, but for the most part, travel under COVID has pretty much returned. So I just wanted to share with the group, and Matt, I'm glad you're on, that we do intend to do our annual, well, we do it every 3 years, but a traffic count. We're gonna do that citywide And it includes the 2 locations on Frontier Parkway on either end of Frontier Parkway. But we're also going to do, we're going to add a couple more for some of the side streets. We're just trying to figure out that the reality of that. What we think is the reality is that the Frontier Parkway is kind of a neighborhood collector, and it picks up a lot of that development that's happened out off of Leland Road. But trying to just keep troubleshooting that. I do think that because the city owns a park property there, the traffic counts will support the idea of adding an additional traffic control device there, a speed hump for sure. And so at least one. So I've I want to make sure we're following the process when we pursue that, but that would be, go through the process, given that we're the landowner, given the fact that the neighborhood has already paid for a couple speed humps. The other thing is Frontier Parkway is on our street maintenance list for this year. They're going to be doing some slurry seal along there. So we're going to have to refresh those speed humps along there. Vance, that's something I want to talk to Jason about, because I want to make sure we get, sometimes we mark those out. And I think in this case, it'd be better to either grind them out and redo them, but redo the striping on those. So a few things I wanted to share, not necessarily action right now, but we are going to do more traffic counting. And I think I think that starts, did I write down the dates? I think I did. September traffic counts happen. And so school year will be back. And again, we'll have more than just the 2 on Frontier Parkway. So, and then I think we can look at the old data with regard to justification for the speed humps. So that may happen yet this summer. So that's the update for Frontier Parkway. Matt, I don't know if there's anything you want to add, or if you're just here to listen in.
Just here to listen in and offer our thanks to your attention to that. And I agree the traffic volume is back post-pandemic, and the Settlers Point HOA can be a part of any partnership moving forward. We'd be happy to, and thank you.
And then I want to go back to the budget after this update, but the McLaughlin-Kenema Trail grant, just an update there. We didn't get the grant that we were hoping for the McLaughlin to Kenema Trail. So we haven't lost sight of it. The work that we did with that grant is still kind of sitting in the queue for the right grant to come along to ask again. We did get an email from kind of the grant administrator through the state. It basically said, one, they didn't have a lot of money in this grant round. So they had $1.5 million to allocate for projects in their refinement category, which is kind of what we were looking for, was a little more design work. One thing that they index things on, and this has, I think, to do with some of the DEI kind of conversations that have been having, but they consider transportation disadvantage. They have a transportation disadvantage index score. And for our project, it didn't score well because of the area that it's in. And I'm assuming that means that there's not a lot of transportation disadvantaged. So I don't have a definition of what that means, but to me, that means that there's, it's unlike other areas that might have folks with disabilities that, need those grant dollars maybe a little bit more than what this is. This feels a little bit more like a recreational trail. And so than a necessity trail. So I think that's what I am interpreting from this very short email that we got from them. So just wanted to report on that. And then last, before I am done, Bob, I did pull the budget details, and the budget sheet you were talking about, let me get back to that, is the pavement maintenance budget. So that roadway maintenance budget we've held $300,000 each year for slurry seal projects. And this budget, we made the determination that really isn't going as far as it used to. So we've made the determination to bump that by a couple $100,000. And really, I think a portion of that was a request that Josh Wheeler had made to help. So about 100,000 of that bump was an increase that Josh Wheeler had made for our pavement maintenance plan, our 5-year plan. He was just seeing a stronger need there. And Jason has kind of emphasized that as well with some of the work that he puts together, which is the slurry seal, chip seal. So combination of that is really just kind of putting a little bit more money into what we think of as, more of that surface treatment. And so that's where the extra 400,000 comes in over the biennium. Okay.
Thank you, John, for taking the time to look that up. I appreciate it.
And that's it from me, Henry.
Okay. Vance, do you have anything more?
Nope, I'm all good. Thanks for listening to my spiel on the lights, and hopefully we can see some progress later on this year on both those locations.
Anybody on the committee have anything to add or say or request?
I've got one little thing. Last night we had a very active, to say the least, Park Place Neighborhood Association meeting, most of which was devoted to the new development of about 450 to 500 anticipated homes in the Park Place concept plan area next to Holcomb Boulevard. So you can anticipate further meetings, concerns, actions on the traffic issues on Holcomb Boulevard. It's going to get worse and worse. So just so you know, it's probably coming up. It'll probably come before a transportation committee at some point.
Actually, Bobby reminded me, bringing up Park Place. There's a couple of things that are coming forward. One is Park Place sidewalks, and there's a couple of neighborhoods up near the kind of the top end of Park Place that have a lot of trip hazards in the sidewalks, and that came to a head, and the commission asked for staff to put together kind of a report on that. That report is now published and available for review. It's got to do with sidewalk damage that is a result of trees and planter strips. And so the commission's going to have a special work session, actually, not just for this topic, but for a couple of topics. Their agendas have just been really full lately. So I think the mayor agreed to another work session on Monday, the 24th. So it's a little less than a week away. We will be diving into Park Place sidewalks and just kind of how the city continues to manage its code with regard to property owner responsibility. So that's definitely a TAC topic. I think if there had been maybe some more time, or maybe as the discussion continues, because it's just a work session, so they won't be making decisions, but they will be probably giving staff some insights into what they're thinking. So that is an important topic for you. And the other thing I wanted to mention, Main Street, we built a couple of parklets down there, and right now under construction is a boardwalk that diverts pedestrians around the buildings basically on the existing sidewalk. So the Nebbiolo Wine Bar has got a parklet, but now they're also going to have a boardwalk. So check that out. I'm curious what folks think of that. And yeah, I think that's enough.
John, when everybody's talking about trees and sidewalks, it should be pointed out that a lot of our older neighborhoods have the same problem, and not necessarily stemming from city required trees, but just from the fact that we got 50, 60, 70, 80, 100-year-old trees in 3-foot parking strips. And some of the sidewalks kind of resemble the coast range, shall we say?
Well, I think one of the issues that the city commission is facing in those sidewalks that John was just referring to is when those homes were built, did the developer plant city-approved trees?
Right.
Thus, if those city-approved trees are responsible for buckling the pavement, who is truly responsible for repairing the pavement?
Yeah, so we will talk in detail about that. Turns out they were trees that were on the city approved list, and some of them were in what is still the standard city approved list. So they were designed and built in accordance with that. So they were properly designed and built. Whether they should be on the tree list or not is debatable. But so anyway, more discussion on that on Monday, the 24th. So Bob, I think it'd be good for your neighborhood to kind of make sure the word gets out on that too.
Okay, I'll have, we have a email list and I'll have Barbara put that information out. And that's the 24th.
It's 6. There's, I think, 3 items on the agenda. And if I remember correctly, it's the 3rd item. So
Okay,
that's always puts you in a little bit of a quandary if you get bumped or not, but hopefully we won't.
yeah. Okay, thanks. We'll get that out.
Question, what was the date? Excuse me, what was the date again on that?
May the 24th.
And then I have a question to Bob about his thing, if it's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
So if they're gonna build 400 and some extra homes for Holcomb, where? And the other question is that gonna then trigger any improvements to Holcomb Boulevard? Because it still drives like a wagon trail. It does have asphalt on it, but it's not level. It's a ride.
Okay,
Go up and
the
down. It's got more
area,
dips and valleys, and it's got a good grade. I've noticed my brake pads are wearing a little bit more now that we reduced the speed to 35. Because my car goes faster than that. But where, Bob, are they looking at? Are they looking at somewhere between the school at the curve there and that other unincorporated area where it's outside the city?
the boundaries would be Holcomb Boulevard to Lifesay Road. And then from the city limits down to about Hunter in the newly annexed area.
So basically across the road in the fire station.
Yeah, in that area, yeah, it's quite a large area, I think 92 acres or something like that.
Yeah,
So is this behind the Holcomb School to the north of it?
No, it's the other side of Holcomb Boulevard.
Oh, on the south side of Holcomb?
Yeah,
Down
if
towards
you
the
go,
creek.
if you go onto the, try to get to the site of Park Place concept plan. And then look at the North Village of that concept plan, and it'll be the greatest majority of the North Village area.
So can you see my screen?
Yes.
There you go, yeah.
So I think what Bob's talking about is this parcel here, and these parcels kind of in this area.
That's
Um,
exactly it, John. Yes, thank
so
you
it-
so much.
It's all part of the Park Place concept plan area, and there's a development there. There's also development on the other side of Holcomb, which is the Sears property. So I don't know the home count, but I trust Judge Bob's number on that. It's, there's a significant number of homes down there, and so yeah, there's still a fair amount of question, but they have submitted, or I think they've just started having. That must have been. Did the developer put that meeting on, Bob?
Well, it was his requirement to give a presentation to the neighborhood association. They haven't actually formally put in their application to the city, but they hope to within 30 days.
How many lots are they planning to put out there?
Around 450.
That's pretty steep terrain right there.
Well, not much of it. Well, most of it's pretty gently sloping.
Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all buildable.
It
But
looks
the
different.
problem is
Lacey
that
Road.
it shows Livesay Road at the bottom, but in all reality, that's a very poor county road. And most of the traffic will be going up to Holcomb Boulevard and then down to I-205 and 213 and so on.
So it really needs to have another access on there, or that road needs to be improved.
Well, we've been talking about that forever, and we could devote at least another hour to this meeting, which is not appropriate this time.
John, just quickly, on that previous map there, is that the urban growth boundary that's outlined?
Yes, this is the urban growth boundary.
Okay, so if Lacey Road was to become a connector for this neighborhood, they'd have to adjust the boundary.
Well, Livesey Road still exists. It's still a county road. So the county actually is commenting on this proposal as well. So they know there's some, it's an old, talk about old goat trail roads, this is
Yeah.
it's got some elements of that to it.
The county has put quite a few requirements that the developer has to do to Livesay Road. However, the developer told us last night that the county didn't quite understand that that's meant to be an emergency route from their new development.
Who is the developer?
Icon Construction.
All right, Henry.
Thanks a lot for that map, John. I appreciate that greatly.
Yeah.
Is that it for tonight?
I have
Anybody
agenda
else?
items, future agenda items, I'd like to mention in case other people are interested in them.
Go.
The Metro's and ODOT's regional mobility policy update. I don't know if anyone was following that, but that would impact Oregon City starting in 2023. And they're currently making decisions on what that policy update will be. And so I wanted to see if anyone else is interested in talking about that at a future meeting.
I would second that if I could, if you would have me as
Oh.
sitting on the committee for future agenda meetings.
Anybody? I'm about ready to call this a day if there's anything else. All right.
I'm quickly that the I-205, they're doing the performance measures that they're deciding on right now. And I don't know if we want to be involved in that discussion either. There's a lot of policies going on in the city that I'm following, and I don't know if anyone else is interested in discussing that at a future meeting as well.
And until something solidifies a little more, it probably not going to be too beneficial for us yet, unfortunately.
Okay, so we're not interested in discussing transportation policy and TAC then, is that correct? I'm just trying to understand people's appetite for policy discussions. I think they're really important, but if not, then I won't bring it up again. So, thank you.
There's always something worth talking about out of that, and once we understand what's real, then it's time to start moving. But what I know about the 205 tolling is that it will happen. The legislature has said it will. So unless you don't want it to, it's going to happen. If you don't want it to, you're going to have to start talking to your state legislators. So
Just to clarify, I'm not referring to the I-205 tolling, whether it's going to be done or not. I'm talking about performance measures for the impact on downtown Oregon City. Looking at local streets impacts, 99E impacts, and walking, biking, transit impacts for diversion. I'm not talking about the I-205 tolling directly. So just to clarify, there's a difference between the two things I'm talking about. But
Yep.
I'm not going to push this though. Sorry.
but they're both kind of tied together a little bit.
I mean, it's a topic worthwhile exploring, I think.
Mhm. Oh, yes, both of them are worth talking about. But in terms of what can happen near future and what can happen far future, it would be better to know what reality we're facing first. It's my own opinion. I can be overruled easily.
Hey, Ray, I think there is a space for that in terms of just the effect that the TAC can have on those conversations. So I do think there's a space for that. Let's pick that up in this in the yet to be scheduled goal setting, because I think, trying to figure out how TAC can make a difference there is going to be important, as opposed to just getting information, right? So let's work through that. And I think Dana's got her finger on the pulse of that pretty closely as well. So more to come.
I share the opinion that we're facing gridlock down there, but I don't see an easy answer. Anyway, as I said, I'm about ready to wrap this up. So going once, going twice, we're done. Gavel's down.
I would just like to say, John, I enjoyed your background.
Thank you. Don't forget, all week is Public Works Week, so celebrate.
All right, we'll come out and have something with you then.
Yeah, do like Bob does and have a beer on Public Works.
You're gonna pay for it, right?
Goodbye.